So you decide to come back and leave Germany, and then you're making the jump into VR. So you're working at Sony on VR Worlds.
Yes.
What are the challenges there?
So going back to what we touched on way back at the start of this podcast, where we were talking about how you could spend hours on a perfect picture in the
Mhm.
game, and then the player not notice this. In this, it's not that the player just has like a free camera and can move it in a certain way, but they can look wherever they want to. So everything you're doing has to be up to standard. Like in a lot of games, you can probably get away with having the main player path and just fill out the rest with stuff and hope they don't necessarily look there. But with VR, everything has to be
They
great.
can put their
And
face right in your art. That's what you're saying.
yes,
Right.
yeah. And at the same time, you're trying to render out two screens at the same time on the same hardware. So you've got half the resources essentially that you would do. So they're looking at it much closer at angles that you don't necessarily want them to see, and you've got half the budget to do it all in.
Wow.
Yeah, this VR Worlds was just essentially going to be a disc showing off VR to people.
Mm.
It was going to be one that you bought in the shop, so it wasn't going to be something that shipped with a headset. So they needed to be solid enough little experiences that it was worth paying the additional money for once you'd actually paid for the headset. And they had the idea of doing a getaway level because the studio had done that previously. And so they went, oh, how are we going to do this? And they just started using the Move controllers. And I think up until that point, I think Sony were going to axe them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they hadn't made a new model for the PlayStation 4. They were kind of
Oh,
legacy from the PS3. And
yeah.
based off that, just this one guy having an idea, oh, this could be quite cool. They suddenly kind of had to relaunch them all. And they were
See,
like, oh, this is actually a really good staple of controlling stuff in VR. So it was really interesting just seeing how little ideas and little sparks like that can blossom.